Hello everyone, especially my Greatsword users. Today we have a brand new armor set, which also happens to be the first Gamma armor set in Monster Hunter Wilds, and it of course belongs to Arc Tempered Raidao. Now every time a new armor comes out, the only thing that really matters to me is a single question of, does it make me do more damage? And that is the question I will be answering here today. Now the simple answer is obviously yes, or I wouldn't be making this video, but the full answer is so much more interesting because of Latent Power. Now unfortunately, Latent Power is one of the hardest skills to mathematically fit into a build, due to the fact that it's just so inconsistent. It's an absolutely wonderful skill when it's active, but that's the problem. You have to activate it, and to activate it you either need to lose about 130 health or be fighting a monster for 2 minutes. Both of those are pretty tall requirements, at least for most hunters whose entire goal is to hunt the monster as efficiently as possible, meaning taking little damage or time to complete the hunt. But unlike most weapons in the case of Greatsword, Latent Power is actually pretty viable, just because we take so much chip damage throughout the hunt. Which means you should never have to wait the entire 2 minutes, at least against endgame monsters that can hit hard. Now with that being said, the Greatsword sets I'm going to be presenting here today are not going to be Latent Power 5 sets, because even though 50% affinity is nice, it's just not worth it due to there being better skills that are also more reliable. But before we get into any builds though, we do have to talk about the new group skill bonus Lord's Soul, as it's arguably the new best group skill bonus in the game, and I can't wait to see what other monsters also get this group set bonus. Now the most important thing that you need to know about this skill is that it gives you a 5% raw attack increase, which is just straight up better than the 10 raw attack increase you get from wearing 4 pieces of Gore Magala, at least when using endgame weapons. This skill however does have a downside, and that downside is that it will only last until you activate Guts, so you need to avoid doing that if you want to maintain maximum damage. Because of this, I recommend using the Moxie Food skill, which will activate with 4 Guts, thus saving your damage. On the bright side, if your Guts does trigger, the other half of Lord's Soul will activate, increasing your defense and resistance, which can help turn things around if you're struggling. Moving on to the actual builds themselves, I have 3 builds for you here today, and the first build is going to be the Agitator version. To make this build, you will need the Arc Tempered Raidao head, arms, and waist, along with the Gore chest and legs, as well as the Counter Charm 3. And to complete this build, you will need 5 Challenger Jewels, 2 Sane Jewels, and 1 Physique Jewel. This is going to be your theoretical maximum damage build, but whether it's actually the highest damage build for you is entirely going to depend on your ability to maintain Agitator. This skill activates after dealing enough damage to the monster and causing them to become enraged. If you're very good at keeping the monster enraged, then I would definitely recommend you this build, but if you're not, then this next build is probably going to be the one for you. To make this next build, we will still be using all of the same armor pieces and charm, but the decorations are going to be a bit different. Instead, you will need 4 Tenderizer Jewels, 2 Sane Jewels, 1 Physique Jewel, and 1 Furier Jewel. This is going to swap our Agitator for the more reliable weakness exploit and a point of resentment. This is not the absolute highest damage build, but it is perhaps the most consistent, and I would recommend it to anyone who either struggles to maintain high Agitator uptime, or simply prefers weakness exploit. But I do have one more build to share with you guys today, and to make it you're going to need the Arc Tempered Raidao head, along with the Gore Magala chest, arms, waist, and legs, as well as the Counter Charm 3. As for the jewels, it's going to be 4 Tenderizer Jewels, 2 Mighty Jewels, 2 Sane Jewels, 1 Physique Jewel, and 1 Furier Jewel. This build is mainly for people who will kill the monster before Latent Power activates, or really anyone who just doesn't want to use Latent Power for whatever reason. I wouldn't recommend it to most people, but if you don't want to use Latent Power, here is a great option. Now, I haven't mentioned the actual weapon itself up until now, and that's because I assume everyone kinda knows what the best options are by this point, especially considering it's the same for every build. But if you don't know or need a reminder, there's really only 2 good options for your Greatsword. The best of which is going to be an Ardean Greatsword, because the stats are just better than everything else you can craft. For the production bonus, you want to get as much attack as possible while also prioritizing sleep as your element type, because that's going to give you openings for True Charge Slash, and with the sleep damage modifier, that's going to be a lot of damage. However, you can still use Paralysis or the monster's elemental weakness, It's going to be a bit less damage, but it's fine. As for the reinforcement bonus, you really just want 1 sharpness increase and ideally 4 attack increases, just to really maximize the raw damage. However, if you don't have that or something very similar, your other option is going to be Zoshia's Greatsword, which is only a little bit weaker than a perfect Ardian. It doesn't have sleep, but you can just craft it, so you can't really complain. As for the weapon decos themselves, you definitely want to prioritize getting a focus jewel in there, ideally a focused handicraft jewel, along with as much critical boost as your weapon can fit in. The reasoning here is critical boost gives by far the most damage for any build with decent affinity, which all of these sets have, so don't bother thinking about attack boost or critical eye. Between these 3 builds, you should hopefully find one that works well for you. I spent a long time calculating them and making sure they were as great as possible, so do let me know if you end up using any of them in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and check out this video next.